Hey, right, wonderful. It is working. It is working. So I will crack on and get started. So good morning, everybody. My name is Gemma Ray, and today I'm going to be talking about my journey from breakdown to best-selling author. And as you can see, I've put my very cheeky hashtag there, hashtag pull my finger, because that's what I'm about. I'm a bit of an idiot. I like being an idiot, but I am an author, a communications coach, a radio presenter, and somebody who is always doing lots and lots of things. But that's the way I am. However, I now know I can look back on my life and understand that I used to procrastinate and take on a lot of things to procrastinate on things that actually really, really mattered, because I was in a place of fear where I was scared of achieving my goals. And we're going to talk about that throughout the week. I'm going to make this loads of fun, because procrastination is often rooted in shame and fear, and it can be a little bit revealing. It can sometimes feel like opening Pandora's box when you explore your own relationship with procrastination. So I'm going to make it as fun and inventive and informative as possible. So who am I? This is a typical me. My brain has too many tabs open. That's my favorite picture. It's just there actually behind me. This is typical Gemma. My brain has too many tabs open, and unfortunately, my brain had so many tabs open at one point that it caused a terrible effect on my mental health, which is what I'm going to tell you about today. I'm just going to open up today, share my story, set the scene, get to know each other a little bit, because you need to get to know me and I want to get to know you guys, and then we'll continue on as the week goes. So I am on a mission to help people fall in love with the joy of achievement, because I know, because I've lived and breathed this for the last 4 years, that when you do the things you say you're going to do, when you keep your promises to yourself, it's amazing. Absolutely amazing. I have this belief that we can go from a place of, first of all, forgiveness, drawing a line under anything that's been, then setting ourselves new promises for ourselves. And then once we keep our promises to ourselves, we develop self-trust. Once we develop self-trust and we nail that, we develop self-belief. And once we believe in ourselves, I believe absolutely anything is possible. You can go from stuck to unstoppable just by keeping your promises to yourself. And that's why I talk about the power of discipline in a lot of my talks. So as my mission is to help people fall in love with the joy of achievement, aka I help people pull their finger out their bottom and take action, keeping it clean just in case your little people are around, which is very hard for me because I have a terrible potty mouth. But this is where pull my finger, hashtag pull my finger, comes from. I love to help people realize what they can get done in less time when they make a commitment to pull this out of their backside and get stuff done. So my message is self-discipline the highest form of self-care? I talk about this a lot. For some people, self-care is, I need to go and have a bath, I want a massage, I want to be able to lie on the sofa all day and binge watch the latest TV series. For me, they're forms of procrastination. Actually, self-care for me, and I can only give you my own experience and that of the experience of the other people that I take through this process. My experience is, when I set those intentions, when I keep my promises to myself, I develop self-trust, I develop unshakable self-belief, and that is self-care. Not sitting inhaling a bag of kettle chips on a Saturday night. Self-care is getting up early and getting out in the fresh air for my mental health and my physical health. Self-care for me is saying that I'm going to finish a piece of work and I'm going to do it when I've said I'll finish, I'll do it, so that I can spend time with my family. So we're going to touch on that all throughout this week. But as I said, today's talk is about from breakdown to best-selling author. So let me take you back to the start of 2016. Some of you might have come across this book before. And at the start of 2016, I read an article in a newspaper where a journalist had read this book, but also read Marie Kondo's The Life-Changing Magic of Tidying Up. And this journalist just had all of her stuff together. That was the best way I can describe it. She had twins, Her house was immaculate, and she'd been through this process for a whole year of basically decluttering her physical environment and a mental environment too. And this book had really, really helped the Miracle Morning. So I picked it up and thought, I can't do this. I told myself for years that I couldn't get up in the morning. I'd been a radio presenter for the best part of 10 years at one point in my life, getting up at 4:30 every day. The reality was I didn't. I slept in. I used to have like more than 15 alarms. I used to have taxi drivers who would ring me because then they'd get a mention on the radio. And most days I would go to work in my pajamas because I had programmed my mind to believe that I couldn't get up in the morning. So I picked this book up, and basically the crux of this book is tell yourself you're going to get up in the morning, and you're going to get up in the morning. And when you get up in the morning, create a morning practice, and you're going to feel more in control of your day. And I couldn't believe it that I read this book, literally shut it, and then the next morning, as if by some miracle, ta-da, I'm up. And I was like, this was really, really strange for me, because at one point in my history as a radio presenter, as somebody who could never get up, my colleagues at the radio station had even sent me to a sleep disorder centre where I'd had like things, electrodes stuck all over me, and I'd been assessed. And the doctors were like, yeah, there's pretty much nothing wrong with you, because it was all in my head. I told myself, I can't get up in the morning, can't get up in the morning, can't. So guess what? Couldn't get up in the morning. Surprise, surprise. So I read this book, and then all of a sudden I realise I can. But what this book did for me, it gave me this understanding that I was in control. So I was in control of my thoughts, and my thoughts were in control of my actions. So I started on this journey of getting up really, really early. I started journaling. I started meditating. I started affirmations, feeling like an absolute div standing in the mirror and saying, I am strong, I am powerful. And I had this one, I am working less and earning more. And I used to say it in the mirror every day, and I felt like an absolute idiot, but I loved it. And this book unlocked a desire to do personal development, which is brilliant, because I know that's exactly why all of you are here. You're all here because you want to just be a little bit better. And that's my mission, is to just be a little bit better, because I want to see what I'm capable of. And this book really unlocked that for me. It also unlocked a desire with personal development to look into coaching. So for the first time in my life, I started being coached. Now, I have to say my first coaches weren't great, and the practices were probably borderline downright dangerous. So choose your coaches wisely. That's all I'm going to say on that matter. But then I started with another lady called Shari, who is incredible. And she encouraged me to do this exercise about finding out your own personal values, which I'd never ever done before. And if you've ever done these yourself, it's an amazing exercise. It took me a few days. I went through hundreds and hundreds of words, but I finally came up with these 4: truth, fun, expression, and positivity. So I've got to tell the truth. I've got to be honest. I should establish the first chapter of Oversharers Anonymous. If you want to know something, I'll tell you like it is. That is me. Fun. Things have got to be fun. They've just got to be light. They've got to be happy. They've got to be hilarious. And I'm happy. Expression. As long as I'm expressing myself in some way, that might be writing, it might be through photography, it might be speaking, being on the radio, writing a book. As long as I'm expressing, I'm happy. And then the last one was positivity. Things have got to be positive. And all of a sudden, when I had these values, I was able to put them against everything in my life that seemed to be out of sync and out of line. All of a sudden, I didn't want to be in my job anymore because it threatened that value of truth. Some of the job that I was doing at the time felt a little bit fake. So I ended up quitting my job and I went freelance. I felt that there was no fun in my marriage. I was checked out of my marriage. I was ready to get divorced. I'd actually seen a divorce lawyer. I had somewhere to live. I was just so deeply unhappy. And this year of doing the Miracle Morning, it wasn't because of that. These problems had been going on for years, like my whole lifetime. But it was finally having a mirror, metaphorical mirror, held up to me that made me kind of go, a lot of these things in your life are completely out of line and they need sorting out. And the biggest thing that needed sorting out was that when I was 4 years old, lived in Spain. Here I am. I think I'm about 3 here. So I lived in Ibiza. And my dad was an alcoholic. He was very abusive. And my mum just went, I can't do this anymore. And she left. So she came back to the UK. We lived in a refuge, like a women's refuge, when we came back until we could get a house. And I know that my dad came back over from Spain and they did try and reconcile for a little bit, but unfortunately it didn't work out. So when I was about 5 years old, that was it. That was the last time I'd seen him. And I developed this hatred for my biological father. My mum went on to marry my stepdad when I was 7. And that man, my dad, my stepdad, who's called Gary, is just the most wonderful person. And I'm so blessed. But this little girl here, this little girl on the screen, just always wondered where her daddy was. Why wasn't he proud of me? Why didn't he want to see me? He only lived down the road and he never got in contact. So I developed this absolute simmering, bubbling anger and hatred towards him. And it was only when I started doing these values, truth. I wasn't truthful. I hadn't gone to find out the truth. I only ever had one side of the story, and I needed to know. I needed answers, and I needed to know why he wasn't proud of me and my sister. Why was he not coming for us? So I started this coaching experience, and I decided to be really brave, and I did this. So this is the 20th of October, 2016. And I did what all good people do these days. And I found him on Facebook. And there he is. And I sent him a message. Hi, Tony. Can I come and see you sometime, please? That's all I put. And that little tick there that you can see on the right-hand side that's greyed out, I waited for that tick to turn into that icon of his face, which I think is it Yoda? I don't even know. And that was the 20th of October. And, I must have looked at that message probably 300 times a day, and I'm not exaggerating. And I regressed back into that little girl, waiting for her daddy to come back and want her. And unfortunately, it didn't happen. And after sending that message, I regressed back into being that kid. I broke down. I threw chairs at walls. I was just waiting to be rejected all over again. And unfortunately, Tony there rejected me in the most spectacular fashion, because the selfish sod only went and died 2 weeks after that message was sent. All of a sudden, just passed away. And at his funeral, I publicly declared my forgiveness of him. I stood at his graveside, and I think I've got one of the things here. I had a card that said a new chapter, and I'd written a card to him, but also to myself, to forgive me and to forgive him, because a lot of my behavior was rooted in this need for validation, this rejection that I experienced as a child and wanted and craved for the best part of 30 years. So I stood at his graveside and said, for everything you chose to miss, we choose to rewrite our histories with love and forgiveness. We are grateful you gave us life. And Tony, may you rest in peace. And I threw that card in, and it was just closure. It was like an Ally McBeal moment. Literally, the heavens opened just as I said it. I grabbed my sister. My heels were in the mud, but it was life-changing, and it really defined me. But unfortunately, the next day when I woke up, I turned to my husband and said, I can't do the school run today. Please, can you take Blake? And my husband leaves early for work. And he's like, I've got to go. I've got a job. I've got this on. I was like, no, please. I can't do it today. I can't face people. Please, can you just take Blake to school? And he didn't realize what was happening, and neither did I. And I pushed myself against the wall, and I was like, please, close my eyes, please, I just can't face people today. Please, can you just take Blake to school? And he was like, I've got to go. And I slid down the wall, and I started to crack my head against the wall. And that goes back to that picture there. That sums it up. My brain has too many tabs open. And at that point, I was cracking my head against the wall, and I just wanted the thoughts to stop. I did. And I can now look back and know that was the start of a nervous breakdown. Mild nervous breakdown, but it was the start of a breakdown, and I just fell to pieces. And the best way to describe that time was I just quit. I quit everything. I'd been in a band for 20 years, and at the end of rehearsals, I was just like, right, guys, that's it. I can't do this anymore. I'm done. I didn't want to be on stage. I didn't want to be the showgirl. Do you know why? Because for 30 years, I had worn a mask. The symbol of theatre is that those two masks, that the comedy and the misery of drama. And I had worn a mask for the best part of 30 years, and the mask had slipped, and I just couldn't do it anymore. And I didn't want to be on stage, and I didn't want to be fake. I wanted to live my values of being truthful to who I was. So remember that book, The Miracle Morning? It encourages you to get an accountability buddy. And I had the best accountability buddy in the world called Ben. Now, my mate Ben lives in Thailand. And Ben was my accountability buddy. He read The Miracle Morning with me. So it was great because I used to get up at 4:30. Ben was up. He was in Thailand. I'd check in with him, do this meditation. Oh, this journal prompt's amazing. Oh my God, let's try this affirmation. It was ace. He was like my best mate, personal development buddy. So he says to me one day, do you fancy writing a book? I was like, yeah, I've always wanted to write a book. That would be amazing. But he'd been to these sessions in Thailand where people were making money writing Kindle books on really random topics. So he gave me a list of potential topics that we could write about, and we shortlisted 3 in the end. One was about breastfeeding. I was like, yeah, I can write about that. I did that. One was vegan keto. And this is like 4 years ago now, 3 years ago. And I remember vegan keto, that'll never catch on. Oh my goodness, if only we'd done vegan keto, we would be millionaires, because there was literally no books in that genre at the time. And then the third option was self-discipline. And I was like, I've got no self-discipline, because I'd eaten all my feelings by this point. After my breakdown, I put on 4 stone in 6 months. I ate all my feelings, good and bad. And I was like, I've got no self-discipline. Yes, I'll write a book on self-discipline. But the irony was, I had no self-discipline to write the book. So it stayed as an idea in my head for months and months and months and months, until one day Ben says to me, get on a Zoom call, because you're going to pull your finger out your arse today and we're going to get this done. So I did. And I wrote the book in a couple of days. Now, there's another story. It took me a whole year to actually release it, because the original plan was to release it under a pen name and just keep churning out books in different subjects and genres. But actually, the book people really loved. And Ben took it to a group in Thailand and they said, this book's really good. This girl obviously wants to be a writer. She should put her own name on it. So Natasha Blake was my pen name, because Natasha was the name that I gave myself as a child. When I came back from, when I lived in Ibiza, nobody could say Gemma in Spain. They used to say Gemma, and I hated it. So I lied and told everybody my name was Natasha. So as part of this journey, going back to my past, living in Spain with my dad, I gave my pen name as Natasha Blake. But then it was a time to put my name on the book. And as soon as it became Gemma Ray on the book, it was like, oh, no, I can't put myself out there. As soon as I put my own name on that book, it felt like I was running down the street with no knickers on. I might as well have been naked, because everybody was going to judge what I said. And people did judge what I said, and I have to hold my hands up. The first book did amazingly well, got bestseller status in loads of different categories. It's continued to sell extremely well for the last 18 months, give myself and Ben a little bit of a buffer, a pot of money to kind of continue our publishing story. And I released my second book last month, Stop Procrastinating and Start Living, Beat Procrastination and Boost Productivity for Self-Care and Success. Because I believe that when we can kick procrastination to the curb, it's all about self-care. It really is. It's about understanding what is good for us, what is not great for us, what's going to take us closer to our goal, what's going to ultimately make us feel a bit rubbish. It's about learning to delay instant gratification and work on the stuff that's going to give you that long-term amazing achievement of all of your goals. So yeah. Oh, and remember that book, The Miracle Morning? So here we go. Bestsellers in business life. Look at number 1 there. Oh, who's that bird? Gemma Ray. Stop procrastinating and start living. And oh, what's book number 3? The book that changed my life, The Miracle Morning. And both of my books continue in some categories to float above that book. And it just, when I see it, just makes me feel absolutely awesome. So I'm going to wrap this up. That was just a little bit about my story. A thinking point that I'd love you to think about today is, what do you procrastinate on? And one thing I forgot to tell you is I should have a PhD in procrastination. I am the queen of it. Even though I've written books on it, even though I talk about self-discipline, it does not come easy. I would rather sit on my backside and watch stuff on Netflix and never get anything done. And there are some people who have this school of thought that you shouldn't force yourself into doing something because it must mean that that's not the right thing for you to do. I disagree. I think sometimes we stay absolutely stuck in fear because we have self-worth issues, or we just don't think we're good enough. And I do think working on those things first is really, really important, which is why I can say this to you guys, because I know that you're working on that. You're in this group, you're developing your own, you're working on your own self-development, your personal development. But I want you to think about today, what do you procrastinate on? What are those things that you put off all the time? And what does it cost you as well? Thank you very, very much for having me. I will now end this broadcast. Take care. Have a great day.